Well, a very good evening, members of the public who happen to be here at the committee room at Lichfield District Council as well. And of course, a very warm welcome to all of those who are watching online through the council's YouTube. So here we are on the 15th of January, 2024 for this planning committee meeting here at Lichfield. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and as far as I know, we've only had one recorded, and that is Councillor Rushton, Councillor Andrew Rushton. Do we have any others at all? No, I think we've almost got a full house, which is a very good way to start this new year. Thank you, members. So the next item on your agenda is declarations of interest. Item 2 is declarations of interest. And I can see that my Vice Chairman, Councillor Checkland, wishes to register. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the second application, 23/01208/FULM for Stitchbrook Park and the Sports Centre, declaring an interest insofar as I'm Chair of Lichfield Sports Club, which is about 300 to 500 metres further up the road, which also provides sports provision. I don't think this clashes with this in any way. I'm not predetermined. I just thought I'd raise it so everyone's aware.
Councillor Checkland, thank you very much indeed for that. As with all declarations of interest, if you're in any doubt, it's always better to err on the side of caution for the sake of transparency. Any others, please? We now move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. And the previous meeting, of course, was last year on the 6th of December. So you've all had a copy of the minutes circulated electronically. If you're all happy that those minutes represent a true and correct record of the meeting which took place on the 6th of December, would you please show? Okay, in that case, I shall sign those minutes. Thank you. Okay, in fact, I'll sign them afterwards once the printed copy is in front of me. Thank you. So thank you, members, for that. We now move on to item 4, which is the planning applications, of which we have 2 this evening. And the first one is one at Hanch near Lichfield. And this is application number 23/00751. /FUL. It's Yew Tree House at Lichfield Road, Hanch. And to take us through this one, I'm going to ask Claire Saint to introduce the report, if you would, please. And you can see, if you turn your head towards the screen, members, you will have the presentation made for you by Claire Saint. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this application is for Yew Tree Farm, which is located on the east side of Lichfield Road in Hanch. The proposal is for the proposed operational development associated with the approved prior notification, reference 23/00268/PNC, which was for the change of use of an agricultural building to a flexible use within commercial, business and service use class E for use as an office. Here is the aerial view of the site. So prior notifications were brought in to support rural diversification. The previous prior notification under Class R assesses the permitted development on only a small number of considerations, which include transport and highway impacts, noise impacts, contamination risks and flooding. Following consultations, it was determined that prior approval was required and it was granted. Here are some of the photographs of the site. As you can see, the site is within the red line boundary. Condition R3.3 of Class R requires planning permission to be sought for the operational use of the building for the proposed use under Class R. The works we're looking at here today are for external alterations to the building, the provision of a car park, boundary treatment and gates. Therefore, the principle was established under the prior notification. Here is an overview of the site layout. and that's what the proposed look is. There's going to be 19 car park spaces, including 2 electric car charging points, 3 spaces for people with disabilities, and a cycle shelter for at least 4 cycles. The surrounding access, turning and circulation areas are also commensurate for their intended use. They're all policy compliant and considered reasonably necessary. Here is the floor plan of the proposed office space, which again is acceptable. And here are the elevations of the building, the proposed elevation, sorry. So they've kept it to be quite an agricultural look, with a fairly small amount of insertions of doorways, a provision of a new roof, and also timber cladding on the outside. All these works are considered reasonably necessary in respect of the already approved change of use. I think if I just go back, there'll also be a sliding gate, as you can see here, onto the front of the site, which is for security as well. In conclusion, it's considered the proposed works are reasonably necessary and appropriate for the approved office use, and therefore approval is recommended. That concludes my presentation, Chair.
Claire, thank you very much indeed for that. So, members, you will have been reminded there by Claire. If you look at 1.6 on your report, it clarifies the issues that we're looking at. Obviously, approval has been granted already in principle for this planning. What we are looking at this evening is the consideration of the impacts of the operational development as it's proposed. We have 2 speakers this evening, and the first of whom is Alan Griffiths, who is an objector, to be followed by Councillor Richard Cox, who is the ward member. Mr. Griffiths, if you'd like to take up your place by the microphone, please, if you would, and you will have 5 minutes during which you can make your presentation. I don't know whether you're familiar with the protocol, but you have 5 minutes. With 30 seconds still to go, you will be reminded of that fact by Christine Lewis. You have to press the little buttons.
There you
That's
go.
it, thank
Is
you.
that better?
So that's fine, thank you. So you have 5 minutes to speak. When you've been speaking for 4.5 minutes, Christine on my left will notify you that you have 30 seconds left. And if you're still speaking at the end of the whole 5 minutes, you must stop speaking as soon as the 5 minutes has elapsed. Thank you. Okay. And your time starts as soon as you commence. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, council members, thank you for allowing me to speak before you. My wife Annette and I are the only close neighbours to the approved development at Yew Tree House, Hanch, application number 23-00751/FUL. We have already voiced our objections at the Kings Bromley Parish Council meeting. Some of our objections are documented under 9.1 neighbourhood responses. We fully understand the disruption that this development will cause to my wife and I are of little importance. So I'd like to concentrate on one of our main concerns when I talked at the Kings Bromley Council meeting. 14.1 on the planning application states that there should be no unacceptable impact to highway safety. It is difficult to understand that Staffordshire County Council Highways feel that this development is acceptable without making considerable alterations to the present highway situation. Traffic entering Lichfield Road in both directions from Chewinalls Lane on regular occasions drive immediately behind slow-moving traffic turning left into Lichfield Golf and Country Club. The club's entrance is directly opposite the entrance to our house. Most drivers will drive behind and wait for the vehicle in front to make its turn, and then continue on the correct side of the road. But lunatics will take the opportunity to overtake on the opposite side of the road in speeds when reaching our driveway in excess of 50 miles per hour. Many accidents have occurred in front of our house due to this high-speed overtaking. My wife and I have been first on the scene on many occasions to give help and in some cases take those involved into our house to await medical assistance. My own daughter with our grandchildren in the car was hit by one of these lunatics while clearly signalling to turn left into our drive. The lunatic stated they assumed she was turning left into the country club. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt, just very traumatized. Annette and I have lived at Roundabout Cottage for 15 years and are well aware of the lunatic driving behaviour. And we make sure that those entering or exiting our drive fully understand what they need to do to stop an accident occurring. I'm sure that the staff of the approved development will also become aware and take extra care to look both ways before entering into Lichfield Road. But what about those visiting? What is very likely to happen is that when leaving the approved site, they will not expect that a lunatic will now be travelling at this point in excess of 70 miles an hour on the wrong side of the road. The resulting accident is most likely to be head-on. Again, either my wife or I could be the first on the scene. If, as is likely, the approved development will proceed, can health and safety issues please be addressed? For example, clear 30 mile an hour maximum speed limits rather than 40. From the start of Lichfield Road to just past the entrance to the approved development. Double white lines for the same distance, leaving gap into the country club and our drive. Or clear hatchings on the road to fully signify no overtaking in this area. On a lighter note, can the last paragraph on this planning application be changed, please, from to avoid disruption to the local bat population to read to the local resident population. Thank you for allowing my wife and I to voice our opinions. Thank you.
Mr. Griffiths, thank you very much indeed for that. And I realise that you are probably, you and your wife, the two people who are likely to be most affected by this development. I do understand that. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm now going to call upon someone who is known to you all, I'm sure. But thank you, Mr. Griffiths, for that. Councillor Richard Cox. I'm not going to explain how long you've got and what happens at the end of 9.5 minutes, Richard, because if you don't know by now, I'd be very surprised. And being an ex-chairman of planning as well, I think you know just as well as I do how it works. So as you know, you've got up to 10 minutes to speak. Thank you. So Councillor Richard Cox, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and hello, members. I called this in, I think, for information. This is the first time that I've met Mr. and Mrs. Griffiths, so I am not in any way under any pressure from them. However, I did call it on highways as one of the reasons, and if I can kick off with highways, I just reiterate exactly what Mr. Griffiths has said. I'm quite happy to say that as the county councillor, I am aware of issues. And I'm surprised that county highways have not actually endorsed those issues, especially at the actual junction of the A51B5014. The speed of vehicles since the introduction of a 40 mile an hour from Wood End Lane through to into Elmhurst and then into Hanch possibly has not done any reason to stop speeding traffic. Speeding traffic that I might add overshoots the A515 at the junction and on numerous occasions, including the one that I am aware of was the 6th of October as recent. But I'm also advised from Mr. Griffiths tonight, although I haven't had clarification myself, only on Saturday. Now, you can only overrun that junction if you're going at speed. So I think speed and highways is a serious issue. But I'd like to move on. I'd like to move on to the point of employment land. This is not employment land. This is key agricultural land. This is in the green belt. I've read the papers and I do not see any special circumstances to justify or reasons to award a planning application. And I stand by that. This is Greenbelt. This is a pre-development in my view. I'd like to remind people that it is Greenbelt, and I'd like to remind that we have a Greenbelt policy. And in the MPPFLF, there is reference to diversification for farmers. This land has been sold. It's not, those units are not farming units. Land is, but the units aren't. So it's a business. It clearly states that we're looking at a business, and I do not see any reason for it to be approved. Now, of course, we've got a problem, haven't we? We've got a PNC that got lodged. Did you see it? Did the ward members see it? Did the parish council see it? No. And a PNC has been approved, which effectively is approving this application tonight. Where's the democracy and probity within that application? This dotting the I's, crossing the T's. If it hadn't have been for my calling, it wouldn't be here for you tonight. It would have been approved. But I firmly believe that this does not meet policies of this authority in terms of Greenbelt. It goes against the employment in terms of it is not employment land. It isn't rural diversification, and it offers no special circumstances. But there's a problem for you, is to overcome the PNC. And I don't know what the ramifications of that are, but I'm absolutely appalled that we're at this stage at the moment. And I said to the Kings Bromley Parish Council, when they asked me, why was I coming still to tonight? And I'm to explain to committee and to this authority that prior notification has possibly run, in my view, where it comes to the Greenbelt, a coach and horses through our own policy. And I'm not going to say much more than that, because I think I've made it quite clear. So if you were looking for reasons to refuse, I'm happy to advise you what I would say. If I was in your chair, I would be looking at against the Green policy. It doesn't meet the NPPF rural diversification test. It certainly doesn't, in terms of Greenbelt, pass the test of providing special reasons and circumstances to develop within the Greenbelt. That isn't obviously having anything to do with agricultural use. This is moving away from agricultural use, members. This is where our agriculture, our farming communities are there to feed us. And gradually, if we erode those open fields and the openness, even if it's not in Greenbelt, if you erode the openness of the countryside, then all we will have is a concrete block. And we're getting that anyway at Hansh. Please remember that the junction at Hansh, this isn't Hansacre, it's Hansh. So that's no reason to give this further development or approval. But I think there are reasons to refuse it, and there were probably reasons to refuse it back in March of this year, of last year. But I just felt you needed to know that. And I'll leave it at that, Chairman.
Councillor Richard Cox, thank you very much indeed for that. And I know that's a very heartfelt plea, really, isn't it, for us to address this? And I know there are lots of issues with this that you feel uncomfortable with and unhappy with, and you've enunciated those concerns very well. There's an awful lot of food for thought there, members. If you hadn't picked up on the fact that Councillor Cox has got many problems with this application. I must remind you, though, quite a lot of what has gone before is already decided under 23/00268/PNC, the prior notification. And we are dealing here with national policy, which is the basically it's Class R of Part 3 of the Schedule 2 of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order from 2015. Now, you know, I have to say that is binding legislation which is imposed by central government, and we cannot simply arbitrarily ignore that. But I'm going to ask Artemis in a minute to just come back and answer some of the points that have been made there, both by Mr. Griffiths, the objector, and also Councillor Cox, the ward member. But before I do that, there were many issues raised by both the objector and Councillor Cox, the ward member, which relate to highways. And I think for that reason, I'm going to ask Mark Evans from County Highways to come along. And Mark, I know that you are here predominantly to deal with queries and questions on the second application. But since so many issues have been raised about highways, I think, firstly, the very fact that you're here in the room, it would be churlish not to involve you. But secondly, I hope that you can shed some light on some of the points which have been raised. Thank you very much. So this is Mark Evans, Senior Highways Officer from Staffordshire County Council. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Just to reiterate what the Chair has already explained and the planning officer explained in her presentation, is that the highway issues, the access off the current highway was determined at the PNC application. On the PNC application, when we were consulted, along with many other consultees, the access was proposed to be widened to allow vehicles to pass, as it was traditionally single lane. The visibility to be able to look left, to be able to look right was improved, therefore meeting national standards and national guidelines. And obviously, as the planning officers explained tonight, there's a proposed gate to be proposed rear of highway to secure the site. That was put back a sufficient distance to allow a large vehicle to park off the highway whilst that gate was opened or closed. So based on the evidence that we had those months ago on the PNC application, we did not see any technical highway issue in terms of its design, the connection to the highway, to recommend a refusal, an objection. Obviously, the car park that is in front of us tonight can be discussed, but again, that was looked at previously at the PNC, and that met your standards, sufficient design. So again, we did not object to that design. Now, obviously, MPPF has been quoted. We can only object if we see a severe impact on the highway network, and that is the word that is used in MPPF. This quantum of development would not, in our opinion, meet that test of causing a severe impact on the network. I've mentioned to you before, and I will mention again because there are new people in the room, I've known a planning application for 500 houses in the West Midlands try the severe test, and they didn't win on 500 houses and the traffic that 500 houses generated. So we did not believe at that time that this would create a severe impact. The only other reason highways can object on a PNC application is highway safety. And obviously, you've heard what you've heard tonight from the two speakers. Again, we only go off records that we have from Staffordshire Police. Now, when we reviewed the accident data from Staffordshire Police, we did not see a cluster of accidents that would generate concern. Obviously, what you've heard tonight is detail from local residents. Whether those were referred to Staffordshire Police, I do not know, but we can only go off Staffordshire Police accident records. Therefore, given all the evidence that was in front of us at that time, we did not see a reason to object. And obviously, bearing in mind, if the application had been refused, we would have had to have gone to an appeal. And we didn't feel we had any evidence in front of us that we could have put in front of a planning inspector to back up that stance. Hope that answers the question, Chair.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. That's Mark Evans there, Senior Highways Officer from Staffordshire County Council. Mark, I can just confirm as well, yes, there was another incident at that junction. I went past there at 7:15 on Saturday morning, and there was a car with its hazard lights flashing deep in the woods there, just beyond the T junction. I don't know the nature of the accident, but yes, indeed, there was another incident. So I can confirm that. Thank you. I'm going to bring in Artemis Christofi now in just a moment. But members, I just want to draw your attention to your report in front of you. If you look at 4.3, which is on page 10, I just want to bring you back to this point because I think it's very important. And I'll just go through it verbatim. It's only short. 4.3 says members are advised that as the principle of the flexible use within commercial business service use Class E development has already been previously established. Therefore, the only matters for consideration herein this application are the physical changes to the building and its surroundings. I reiterate that because I'm a little bit worried that we might deviate from the reason for this being in front of us this evening. I think I'm right in saying that. If you'd like to just confirm that, Artemis, that I am correct in saying that, and then answer some of the other points, particularly those which have been raised by Councillor Cox, please. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just clarify, so we've talked a lot about the prior notification, prior approval application that was in. So that was for the change of use of the building to a more flexible commercial enterprise. I can confirm that we did actually run a consultation exercise during the course of that prior approval application. So neighbours were notified and we received no comments from that exercise. Site notices were erected around the site as well, and the Kings Bromley Parish Council were consulted and we received no comments from that exercise as well. So I just want to highlight that. So there was a full consultation exercise undertaken during that and we received no comments back on that. So as the chair has reiterated, the purpose of this evening is to look at not the principle of what it is, it's to look at the aesthetics of the building itself more than anything else. So that's what we need to focus the attentions and the impact of that development. So those are the key things to highlight and to focus on this evening. We cannot go back and reassess the principle. So I just want to stress that for the purposes of this evening. Is that fine?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Artemis. So that's Artemis Christofi there. Members, I hadn't seen anyone yet suggest they wish to make comment or ask a question. Do we have questions, comments at all? Yes, we do, in fact. I think the first one is Councillor Salter and then Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. Yeah, on the accident statistics that we've been hearing, I'm well aware from incidents within my own area that the police don't always have records of known incidents, which is very difficult at times. And again, with the regard to the speeding, and I know I fully understand that we are not here to discuss what has already been decided, but I wondered if we could, to sort of help in respect of the community, ask there to be a survey carried out by the Staffordshire Safe Roads Partnership and hopefully have the area considered as a safety concern zone, which means it would be patrolled more regularly. It would have signage showing that there are patrols, cameras, etc. And it may just help to prevent some of the future incidents. I don't know whether that can be a condition of this or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Salter. Before we answer that, I'm going to perhaps ask Mark Evans to come back on that one. Councillor Powell, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, first of all, Councillor Salter stole my thunder a bit. I too was going to ask about the safe roads, but also could we not put it in as a condition that there is extra high visibility markings and that there is an entrance there to this building? I know the gates and all that, you say you've moved them back, allow for a big vehicle, etc. but really it could really do with emphasising. Could we also ask that the highways organise that there are suitable 40-mile-an-hour repeater signs along that section, and perhaps additional not warnings but notification that it is a 40-mile-an area and it should have solid white lines down the middle, etc., etc. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Powell. 2 points there, I think, really, which are directed, unfortunately for you, Mark, probably at you. The point was made as well, I think it was by Mr. Griffiths, the objector, about double white lines and such things. It is a little bit of an accident black spot, although perhaps no very serious accidents, but there are, sort of minor skirmishes quite frequently. Do you think there is anything that could be done, Mark, at all there to make that area a little bit safer? And I will say as well, I do know it's 40 miles an hour there, but there's a great many people exceed that quite excessively. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will start by giving you the bad news that we can't do anything under this planning application that we're here to determine tonight. I can seek clarification from the planning officers, but I don't think that's the case. So what you're asking is outside the remit of what you're being asked to determine tonight from a starting point. However, what I can do is take that message back to our area office, ask them, I'm no expert in terms of what's going on locally. Our area office, our community area highways manager knows that area far better on the ground than I do. I can take those issues back. I can mention those things. And obviously our county councillors have influence just as much as you at district level. And we can see if we can try and do something. Now, that may not satisfy everybody in the room, but that's the best I can offer at this present moment in time, which is better than nothing, which is, what I can do at this present moment, Chair.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. I'm very happy with that answer because I realise that we are straying into ground that is perhaps not really covered by this planning application. So I think if we can take that away from tonight's meeting, that there will be, this area will be highlighted for a little bit of extra surveillance. And I think that would be at least a small victory, if you like. And right, Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. I understand what's been said, but at the end of the day, what we're being asked for tonight is to have actually look at the building itself.
Correct.
And I think we're in a very difficult situation because it complies with the development plan and the NPPF. And I don't think that we can do anything about that. And I think that unfortunate as it is for the relevant speakers, that we need to approve this tonight.
Councillor Evans, do I take that as a tacit statement of your willingness to recommend approval? Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey Coggins, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I agree with what Councillor Evans has said, that over the lifetime of a building, unfortunately, you will find that you do get a change of use and that the building needs updating and improving. So I would like to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey Coggins there. Yes, because members, what we are looking at is literally the physical development here, the changes to the building, etc. And I know that we haven't been discussing that to an extent because obviously I know the two speakers were highlighting things like traffic issues, etc., and disturbance and loss of amenity. But we are here really just to discuss the physical changes and the development of this building. I'd like to thank Councillor Evans for summing up that and also making that proposal. Unless there are any other speakers, and can I just remind as well, Councillor Cross, I know you had to leave the meeting to go and attend to an issue in the car park. Could I just remind you, please, that you will not be able to vote on this issue? Thank you very much. I know you'll understand that, but thank you. So members, there we have it. It is recommended for approval by the planning officer. The report does clearly state that. And it has been recommended for approval, or at least approval has been proposed by Councillor Evans, and it has been seconded by Councillor Harvey Coggins. And the report in front of you, you've all had a chance to read it. You've all had a chance to interrogate the report and listen to the answers given by officers, and also the councillor, the ward councillor, and the speaker, the objector. I'd like you to now vote on this, please. So can I please have a show of hands for those of you who are in favour of approval in line with the officer's recommendation for this application, please. Please show if you are in favour. Thank you. That's 10. Okay. Do we have any against, please? Any abstentions? We have one abstention. Thank you. So by a vote of 10 in favour with one abstention and no councillors against, I do declare that 23/00751/FUL, which is the application at Hanch Yew Tree Farm, has been approved by this planning committee here on the 15th of January 2024. I'd like to thank all of those involved in that decision, and thank you very much to the ward councillor, Councillor Cox, and also to the objector, Mr. Alan Griffiths. Thank you very much indeed. We shall move on in just a moment to the second application of the evening. I'll just give anyone who wishes an opportunity to leave the chamber to do so, and then we shall recommence. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, members, ladies and gentlemen, we now reconvene after that very, very short break. And the next one is 23/01208/FULM. I must remind you, members, that the reason that this is coming to the planning committee this evening, the reason being is that Lichfield District Council is the owner of the land. And for that reason, it has to come to this planning committee for determination. So to take us through this report, which is the Stitchbrook Park, Kerborough Road, Lichfield site, where, of course, members, you will be fully aware, Lichfield District Council proposes to build a brand new leisure centre with a swimming pool. And that is what is before you this evening. So I'm going to ask the senior planning officer here, Kerry Challoner, to take us through this report. Kerry, I know it will give you great pleasure to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You've done part of my presentation there, I think. So we've got the planning reference there on the screen. We all know it's for the leisure centre at Stitchbrook Park. So the aerial picture there is just showing the surroundings of the site, really. I think what I would like to point out is the green belt is over the other side of Eastern Avenue that runs across the northern part there. And then we've got Kerborough Road, which runs down to the west. And then we've got residential properties all around the bottom of the site. So the aerial photograph shows the greenery that's already there. We're on site. There's a little changing room building, and there's some pitches marked out. There's also some woodlands that are referred to in the officer report. They'll be retained as part of the proposals. Also to note on here is the access point. The access point to the site will remain the same, although it will be enhanced as part of the proposals. We have had some neighbour objections you'll read in the report. So if I just point out their locations. So we've got Gloucester Close down here, and we've got Truro Close, which swoops around here. And then we also have Field Road. I've lost my red thing. Field Road are some of these properties here. And then, of course, you've got these on Kerborough Road. So they're the nearest residential properties that are highlighted in the report. Photograph 1 shows Kerborough Road, a view up towards Eastern Avenue at the top. There's a pathway which kind of comes to an end in front of the last house before you get to the park. And then there's a bus stop which sort of sits in the middle of the grass verge. That forms part of the proposals because that would be enhanced. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. You've also got all the hedging along Kerber Road that would all, and all the hedging around the perimeter of the site would all be retained as part of the proposals. Photograph 4 is just showing the existing access, and you can just see the little car park beyond it. And then beyond the outer perimeter of the site, that's where the residential properties are now. I included this because I thought it's a good sort of collage of what's there now. I'm sure lots of you members are well aware of what's on site there now. So this building is the little change room building, which is unused, has been for some time, and will be demolished as part of the proposals. That's the back, looking back at the access from within the site. There is a small play area currently on site. Again, that would be replaced as part of the proposals. I'll highlight that again in a minute. And then the rest of them really just show the boundaries of the site, and it's what you'd expect from Stitchbrook Park. So onto the exciting proposals. We have, so the woodland walk would be retained as part of, as I said before, that sort of green belt of trees. The supplementary refers to the attenuation basin, which is actually in the northwest, not in the northeast. So just clarifying that, even though it is shown on all of the plans. So that's up in that corner. That's where all the surface water, etc., would drain to. The building itself, so there's our access. We've got 136 car parking spaces, and Highways have done some work. We've had the plans amended and so on to make sure that large vehicles such as refuse lorries and school buses can get into the site and can adequately turn around. The building is positioned here. It's positioned there for a reason, partly to make sure that we can maintain this sort of tree belt, but also partly to ensure that in the future we could adapt and extend this building. At the back is a 3G pitch, which is a junior playing pitch, but also has the capacity to be 3 5-a-side pitches. And you can see the red there underneath. So you could have 3 vertically or 1 sort of horizontally. Existing accesses to the park would be retained and enhanced with pathways through the site. And then another significant enhancement is this pathway, this pedestrian access off Kerber Road, where a pathway would be provided which would link up with the existing pathway. So we'd have continuous pathway up here, and we'd also have enhanced bus stop facilities. A travel plan would be provided as part of the scheme, and that's part, I think that's one of the conditions, and that will basically seek to enhance sustainable transport. So the building itself, we've got a 25-metre 6-lane pool. I think 11.8 refers in the report refers to 4 lanes. Just to clarify, it is a 6-lane pool, 25 metres in depth or width. We have a cafe in the foyer, but like at Burntwood Leisure Centre, I guess. You walk in, you've got the cafe area and the reception area. We've got a community room just up here. We've got that's the plant room across the top. And then this is a changing village. We have, this is the gym, the large pink area with 80 stations. We've got a spin studio and a dance hall as well. The building has been designed, it's a portable frame building, and it's quite clever how further extensions to the building, will be able to add on to that quite easily. It's been designed with that in mind. So the elevations of the building, they are, we've sort of got a mix of cladding, quite modern in appearance, single story, although the roof design is there to accommodate the plant equipment as well. So if I flick back to this, so the plant equipment is all on this side of the building, you'll note, which is away obviously from the residential receptors. The building will have air source heat pumps to provide energy, and also solar panels on the roof. It's being built to BREEAM standards to make sure that we hit sustainable design as much as we can. I won't go into the history. I'm sure you're all aware of the history of why we've got to this position, but happy to answer any questions. And that concludes my presentation this evening.
Kerry, thank you very much indeed for that. Now then, we do have a speaker of sorts. Mr. and Mrs. Diane and Paul Harrison did apply to speak, but it wasn't made clear that the status of their status. And because of that, they didn't appear on the speakers list, but they did register prior to the deadline. So for that reason, I was asked whether I was willing to use my discretion and permit. They're not here to speak in person, but Christine has got their speech in front of her. I said I thought it was reasonable that they should be allowed to do that. So for that reason, Christine will be giving us up to 5 minutes a presentation prepared by Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, who I believe are neighbours. Are they neighbours to the site? They are, aren't they? Yes, thank you. Now, in terms of making this as fair as possible, the timing of this, Christine will not be allowed to time herself. So we're going to ask the Vice Chairman, Councillor Checkland, to do the honours. And so, Councillor Checkland, if you'd like to press the button on the phone as the moment that Christine starts to speak. Christine, you have 5 minutes with 4.5 minutes elapsed. You will be reminded of that fact, I'm sure, by Councillor Checkland. And at the end of 5 minutes, you must cease speaking altogether. Your time starts as soon as you commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As the plans for a leisure centre in Stitchbrook Park are being developed further, our concerns and those of occupants of neighbouring properties have increased. This site is so close to residential properties is inappropriate. This may only affect a relatively small number of houses, but we suggest that councillors would not be happy if the leisure centre was being constructed close to their own homes, with the subsequent noise and light pollution until 10 p.m. every most nights and the increased risk of flooding to their properties. At the initial consultation, which doubtless cost council taxpayers a lot of money, I was categorically told that there would be no swimming galas at the site and there would be no matches after 9 p.m. Obviously, I was misled and lied to, and the council has little concern for the residents of adjacent properties, which will be impacted by parking and noise from the site. The council's own environmental health officer has expressed concerns about the noise impact from voices of both players and spectators and the impact of balls on fencing upon neighbours. He states that ball stop fencing should be mounted with vibration isolating mounts to ensure that impact noises levels are sufficiently mitigated. Will this be implemented? The report from Staffordshire Highways dated 19th of December states, given the size of the development, a travel plan would ideally have been provided upfront to justify the claims regarding sustainability, such as car sharing and other sustainable modes of transport. However, this has not been provided, therefore, this will now require the travel plan to be conditioned. Buses to and from the bus station and Kerborough Road only run until 7 p.m. on weekdays and 5 p.m. on Saturdays, with none on Sundays and bank holidays. These schedules do not provide sustainable transport. Will there be any incentive for leisure centre users to arrive by bike? I don't see it possible to incentivise people arriving on foot, as that will only encourage people to park their cars away from the site. How will cycling along Wheel Lane, Western Road and Kerborough Road be made safer? On council maps, these constitute an advisory cycling route, but there will be no marked cycling lanes or signage. The report states, given the possibility of events being programmed at the same time, e.g. a football tournament using the 3D pitch and a swimming gala using the swimming pool, this may attract more coaches to the site from outside the area. An event management plan was requested detailing how the site will prevent indiscriminate coach parking on Kerborough Road, which could result in the obstruction of visibility displays from the main access and obstruction to the existing bus stop facilities for normal bus passengers. Has this been done? How will traffic, especially coaches, accessing the centre be prevented from using Kerborough Road South? of the entrance, and how will the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit be enforced? Can the council guarantee there will be no introduction of parking charges for the site, which would inevitably result in parking in residential roads adjacent to the site? How does the council propose to prevent other surrounding streets from being used for access and parking by leisure centre users without affecting residents? There are hedgehogs that currently use the park. How will these be protected? It's good to know that the council has been working with Staffordshire Energy regarding generation of sustainable energy. In view of climate emergency, this should be followed through, and that the building and its functioning will be carbon neutral. We agree that a new swimming pool is needed in Lichfield, but this site is not the most appropriate place for it. Thank you, Chair.
Christine, thank you very much indeed. And I think you fitted that quite nicely into the allotted time, didn't you, of 5 minutes? And Councillor Checkland, you didn't have to remind her of the fact that her time was fast being exhausted. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, members, you will all know quite a lot about this site, I know. It's been featured in the local media quite a lot for lots of reasons. Do we have any comments or questions, please? I've just got one point I'd like to make. Kerry, I think you mentioned the fact that we've got air source heat pumps at work here, or potentially at work here. I think I read somewhere that we've got ground source heat pumps as well. Would that be correct? I think there is ground source heat being derived as well, but I mean, what I would say is that the very fact we have a very large acreage, it's a 9-acre site, it lends itself very well to a ground source heat pump, which I believe are slightly more efficient than air source as well. The big drawback with ground source, of course, is that the upfront costs are greater, but it does repay over a period of time with better efficiency. So I think I did read that. I don't know whether you can confirm that we've got ground source as well, please.
As I understand it, it's ground source heat pumps. Have I said air source? Yeah. So sorry, everyone.
Thank you. That was just for clarification. Thank you very much indeed. Right. Any questions, points, please? Councillor Powell, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's looking good. It'll be nice to see the finished project, hopefully. I note from what Christine read to us that the residents, or some of the residents, seem a little bit concerned about balls and things like that heading their way. So perhaps it might be an idea that we go for planting of trees all along the boundaries where the houses and that are, and that'll help cut down noise, light pollution, balls flying through the air, etc., etc. But apart from that, it looks damn good, and let's get on with it.
Councillor Powell, thank you very much indeed. Yes, I think you've picked up on quite a few of the concerns expressed there by Christine on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Harrison. I'm going to call upon Artemis Christofi just to answer a couple of those points there, because I think most of us probably share some of those concerns in terms of loss of amenity or potentially loss of amenity for local neighbours, noise, etc., and of course light pollution, I suppose. So I'm going to just hand over to Artemis Christofi now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So if I can just clarify a few points that have been raised. So in terms of the landscaping, we do have a condition on there for details to be submitted to us and approved. So I can't remember which condition that is. It's condition 11 within the report. So I think there was mention of an event management plan. Yes, we have conditioned that to be submitted and approved by us so that we can monitor that and review it. That's condition 13 that's listed within the report. The floodlighting was also mentioned. We have conditioned that as well for details to be submitted by us. That's condition 14 within the report. Condition 23 also stipulates the hours of use. So just to say, there is some flexibility in that. It's what I would say, although we've allowed it to be up to 10 p.m, that is a limit. It's not a target, it's just a limit to allow flexibility as and when that might be needed. And we don't envisage that that will be a particularly regular thing. So that covers that, I hope. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on is around the noise and amenity issues. So this has been debated over the last couple of months while this application has been in, and we have had lengthy discussions and debate with the environmental health team as well. We have put quite a stringent condition within the report, condition 18, that within 9 months of operation of the site, that they are to submit a noise impact assessment report that shows 6 months use of the site. So we get a good varied amount of time to allow them to do that. And that they also propose a noise mitigation proposals to come in to us to be assessed. Now, what Environmental Health did originally ask for was the noise attenuation fencing to be put around the site. I felt that was going to be a little bit draconian, and obviously we want to try and retain as much of the views from residential properties through the site as much as possible, and try and encourage more landscaping, more greenery to the area. And also we didn't want to block off access to and from the public footpath as well. So this condition has been put on so that we can work with the applicants and ourselves essentially to come up with a scheme that will look better, and they can work with the local residents and find out what they'd like to see in terms of mitigation, and offer some options that they can review as well. So I just wanted to highlight those. I think I've covered everything. Thank you.
Artemis, thank you very much indeed. Yes, that was a very comprehensive report there that you just gave us, and you went through many of the conditions. As you will have noticed, members, up to page 41, we have up to 23 conditions. It is not unusual to have that many conditions, but those conditions are there for a very good purpose, and that is to ensure that this meets with reasonable requirements in so many aspects of this. And I think, as has been alluded to there by Artemis, every aspect of this application is very, very stringently controlled, or will be very stringently controlled, by the imposition of those conditions listed from pages 36 to 42, I think 41. Right, Councillor Cross, you wish to speak. My Vice Chairman, Jamie, did you wish to come in at all? You do. Okay, Councillor Cross, and then it will be Councillor Checkland. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I thought it was on. My apologies, I thought it was on. I disagree with the recent statement that Christine read out to us, that not being an appropriate site. A lot of work's gone into this by subcommittees over the years to find an appropriate site within the city, and they put a lot of work and effort into this and chose this one, and it's been approved. One thing that I can't seem to find anything on is about parking. Is it going to be free parking on a time limit of 3 hours or something like that? Hopefully it is. And if there is something about parking conditions there that's not going to be too expensive, then I would propose that we approve this application.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Cross, for that proposal. I'm going to bring in now the Vice Chairman, Councillor Checkland, and I do know that Councillor Checkland has taken a particular interest in this application, not least because he is quite heavily involved with lots of sporting activities within Lichfield, and so we're more than happy to hand over to him for his view of this application. Councillor Checkland, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, sport is one of my interests. I've looked at this. I mean, this goes back some time to find a location. 12,000 people signed a petition with a view to having a location within the Lichfield area again, as Friary Grange was old and dilapidated, falling to pieces. Fortunately, it's been kept going for the time at which this has been done, and hopefully we can manage to keep that going still. I have a couple of concerns in relation to the loss of full-size football pitches. The AstroTurf is for junior football. There is also a shortage for full-size pitches. There is also a shortage for junior pitches. That needs to be borne in mind. The coach issue, I'm very glad that's preconditioned, and I would hope that, or I'd ask that if the conditions when being agreed could be run through the chair or the vice chair as part of that, so that we can at least have an input as to whether or not we think it's a reasonable conclusion. The pitch makeup itself is dictated by yet another condition in relation to the fact that it's got to meet Sport England standards and be relevant for rugby as well. So that's interesting. And my main concern is the opening hours for the pitch use outside. There are residences nearby, and a 10 o'clock stop. It's not going to be used by kids at that time of night. It's going to be used by adults between 9 and 10. I think 10 o'clock is too late. I would like to condition 9:30 as a latest time. I understand there's going to be a 9-month survey. That's either 9 months of misery, or if it hasn't caused any problems in the first place, then perhaps the opening hours could be extended rather than trying to draw it back. So rather than upsetting everybody to start with. Tree line football pitches are a lovely idea until it's cold, in which case the thing's frozen, you can't use it, because the shadowing causes the pitches to freeze. It might be cooler weather, but believe me, they're not. I'd like to propose that we approve this proposal, and I do look forward to it starting, despite the number of conditions that are in place at the moment.
Councillor Checkland, thank you very much. It has already been proposed for approval by Councillor Cross, so you're willing to second, aren't you? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Would that be reasonable then? Just one second, please. Thank you. I was just really seeking clarification there. The point made by Councillor Checkland about he was considering 10 o'clock too late and 9:30 would be perhaps better. Just really seeking approval of that. I think what we're looking at, if possible, if it was agreeable, is that we leave the condition at the moment at 10 o'clock. But of course, it is going to be very closely monitored. This is all part of the operation to come. And I think if we can allow that decision to be made subsequent to the monitoring having taken place, if you're in agreement with that, I don't know how you feel about that, Councillor Checkland.
I've expressed my view. I'm open to others.
Okay. Any other views on that, please? Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I concur with Councillor Checkland that I think it's easier to start with an earlier finish time, and if all is well, extend it than try and draw it back. And as you said, it could be 9 months of sheer misery. My reason for my hand raised really was to try and give a little bit of reassurance in respect of the concerns about the hedgehogs. They are a concern. We all know they are heading towards the endangered list, if not already in some areas on. Their numbers are dwindling. That said, this type of activity does not preclude or prevent their habitation. In fact, they can, to a certain extent, benefit by it. They'll go around clearing up all the drop crisps and apple cores. And of course, they are creatures of the night, so hopefully this won't be used during the night. So there shouldn't be too much of a worry on that. But I would like to see a survey on it. I've participated and taken part in surveys on areas such as the Little Aston Recreation Ground, where we were delighted to find at least 27 individual hedgehogs throughout one season. So they are around. You don't very often see them. They are there, and this shouldn't make too much difference to them.
Thank you. As you say, they are creatures of the night, and most of us tend not to be. Well, I speak personally, but I can't speak for anybody else. Thank you, Councillor Salter. Councillor Ashton, please.
With a possible extension.
Thank you. I'm really drawing the conclusion that there is a desire, I think, on the part of certainly some members, that we do look at the proposed hours of activity Currently, condition 23 does list up to 10 o'clock or 2200 hours, Monday to Friday, and Saturdays, Sundays, and bank holidays. I'm sort of getting a vibe coming from some of the councillors that you feel as though 9:30 would be more appropriate. Would it be okay if I, sorry?
It's 8 o'clock on Saturday, Sundays, bank holidays.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm terribly sorry. I need to get my glasses changed. I do apologise. It quite clearly states, yes, 0700 hours to 2200 hours Monday to Friday, and 0700 hours to 2000 hours. That's 8 o'clock Saturdays, Sundays, and bank holidays. I do apologise for that confusion. Okay, so we're just talking about the weekdays, aren't we? Where it's a 10 o'clock finish proposed. Okay, now I know that some of you are saying 9:30. Is there a willingness to go to 9:30 then? Is that where we are with this one? Yeah, okay, sorry.
So what we need.
So right, so I need a proposal, please, for a change of hours. Yes, to amend condition 23. Thank you. Councillor Cross.
Proposal to amend.
That's right. Condition 23.
So now I need a second.
And that's seconded by Councillor Ashton. Okay.
So now we can go to the vote, but it's with that amended condition.
So this is the full vote, isn't it? Which was proposed by Councillor Cross, seconded by Councillor Checkland.
No, so
Oh,
we are now.
sorry.
So, and I'm going to come on mic just so it's clear for anybody watching. So, what I'm actually saying is it's now Councillor Cross has amended his proposal to change that condition for a 9:30 finish for the pitch. That, as far as I'm aware, has been duly seconded by Councillor Ashton. So that is what we're going to be voting on. So it's approval with conditions, but that one condition of the finish time of the pitch is amended to 9:30.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's what we're doing. So that is the proposal put by Councillor Cross. He is amended, and that has been duly seconded. So it is approval with conditions, with the amended condition of a 9:30 finish. If that isn't carried, we will then go back to the original. Okay.
Okay, so that's been proposed by Councillor Cross, seconded by Councillor Ashton. Can we please have a show of hands for that, please? That appears to be, I think that's unanimous, isn't it? Yes, okay, thank you.
Has been carried.
That's fine, thank you. So that's the only vote we need. So effectively, we have voted in for the confirmation. We've confirmed the proposal to confirm this application. It has been approved with that condition to the 23rd condition on page 41, and that is that we suggest the opening times in the weekdays conclude at 9:30 and not 10 o'clock as in your report, members. Thank you. Is that just for the, that's just for the outside activity, just for the outside activity. So we're not talking about anything that's going on inside the sports hall or the swimming pool. Thank you very much. Right, members, I think that's it then. So that application there has been approved by you this evening. That's the 15th of December 2024 here at Lichfield District Council. And with that, members, I am going to declare the meeting closed, but I must just have a postscript to that. And unusually, we do have another planning committee meeting in just over a week's time. So the date is the 24th, which is Wednesday, the 24th. Unusually, we're having a planning committee meeting on the Wednesday. Next Wednesday, the 24th, we will be meeting again here. I look forward to seeing you all then. In the meantime, I'd like to thank all the members for taking part this evening. I'd also like to thank all the officers as well. And so we had Mark Evans from the County Council at Stafford, and Harjit Gill, legal officer, who's travelled here today as well. Harjit, thank you very much indeed for coming along. All the planning officers we've had this evening, and I would like to bid you all a very good night and look forward to seeing you all again in just over a week's time. Thank you. And to all of those who are watching online, thank you for joining us and good night. The meeting is concluded at 8:15. Thank you.